Get ready. What you're about to hear is not just another guess or random doomsday prediction. This is a warning from Richard Wolff, one of the most respected economists today, who states loud and clear that what's coming is worse than a recession. Yes, worse than any financial crisis you've seen or heard of. And the scariest part? Most people remain numb, believing things will soon get better, as if the economy were a rubber band that always snaps back into place. But what if I told you that this rubber band is about to snap? That the imminent collapse of capitalism is not a conspiracy theory, but a logical, predictable, and, even worse, inevitable sequence? You might be thinking, that won't affect me. Think again. The effects of this financial crisis are already knocking on your door, quietly, disguised as inflation, unemployment, and inequality. Yet few notice, and even fewer know how to protect themselves. That's why in this video, we're diving deep into Richard Wolff's warning and unraveling, step by step, the reasons why what's coming can radically change your life. Get ready. What you'll discover here isn't in the newspapers, doesn't appear on TV, and definitely won't be taught in school. This is real, strategic knowledge for those who want to understand what's really happening and how to position themselves before it's too late. Richard Wolff's warning sounds like an urgent call for those who haven't yet realized. We are living through what he describes as the greatest financial crisis in the history of capitalism. In Brazil, it might sound like an exaggeration, but it's a surgical diagnosis. Of course, many people would rather cover their ears and pretend it's just another short-term recession. But let's be honest, denying the gravity of the situation won't make the problem disappear. It's like ignoring a leaking roof, hoping the rain will stop on its own. What's curious is that this denial doesn't just happen among the uninformed. It also happens among political, business, and cultural leaders, people who prefer to maintain the facade of prosperity. Richard Wolff wants to shatter that bubble, exposing that the system isn't just failing, it's imploding. It's a bit like that friend who always seems fine, until one day, they break down and say, "I can't take it anymore." According to him, capitalism has reached that breaking point. And here's the key. When a structure as powerful as American capitalism starts to collapse, the effects are global. Don't think this financial crisis only affects people on the other side of the world. The impact hits your wallet, your job, your security. And then the unavoidable question arises. Are these signs of collapse just a prelude to something even bigger? Richard Wolff's warning gains even more weight when he invites us to look back at the history of great empires. It's interesting, right? We always think these powers were unshakable, until one day they just fell. The Greek Empire, which shaped Western philosophy. The Roman Empire, which practically invented modern law. The British Empire, which ruled the seas for centuries. All of them followed the same script: rise, peak, collapse. And guess what? American capitalism seems to be on the same path. It might sound scary, but this comparison is necessary. We're not talking about a temporary downturn that the market will soon recover from. We're talking about a deep, historical process, almost like a law of nature. And the most impressive part? Each empire, at its peak, believed it would last forever. Financial crises always seemed like things of the past, or problems for others, until their fall became inevitable. If you think about it, what Wolff is really saying is, it's not a matter of if the empire will fall, but when. And that when might very well be now. Richard Wolff's warning is clear. This historical cycle is already in motion. And are we ready to face the consequences of another empire in collapse? For an entire century, American capitalism seemed unstoppable. After overcoming slavery and consolidating national unity, the U.S. experienced unprecedented growth. From 1870 to 1970, real wages rose, profits soared, and the sense that this economic model was unbreakable spread across the world. It truly seemed like the American dream was indestructible. This astonishing growth fueled the belief that the U.S. was the exception to the historical rule. While other empires collapsed, American capitalism just kept getting stronger, like an engine that could never fail. And of course, when everything's going well, who dares to predict a financial crisis or a recession? After all, back then, wages grew along with productivity, and opportunities seemed endless for anyone who wanted to succeed. But it's precisely that sense of exceptionalism that, according to Wolff, turned into a dangerous trap. The blind belief in eternal success prevents any critical reflection. Cracks and shadows begin to emerge in the structure, but no one notices. And that's where the danger lies. When optimism turns to arrogance, the ability to predict and avoid collapse disappears. It's like a ship so confident it's unsinkable. It doesn't even bother to steer clear of icebergs. Now take a look at how that illusion still lingers. How many times have you heard, "The United States is the largest economy in the world"? As if that were a permanent guarantee of stability. Richard Wolff's warning tears down that myth, showing that in reality, no one is immune to decline. And as we'll see next, the signs that this golden age is over are already glaring, even though many refuse to see them. Wolff's warning is almost a desperate cry. Despite the overwhelming evidence, most people insist on denying reality. Soaring social violence, ever-increasing inequality. Yet many still chant the mantra, "Everything is under control." It's that classic story. The building is on fire, but the authorities say, "Don't worry, it's a controlled fire." Hard to believe, right? The most shocking part is how this denial spreads even among the elite, political, cultural, and economic leaders. These are the same people who should be guiding society with responsibility, but instead choose to maintain the comfortable narrative that this is just another temporary recession. Wolff calls this the great institutional blindness, a condition that prevents any real change until collapse becomes irreversible. And don't think this is only happening abroad. This pattern of denial is replicated in several countries, including right here, where politicians prefer to manipulate data instead of confronting a possible financial crisis head-on. It's easier to sell false optimism than to face the harsh truth. But as Wolff reminds us, denying the fall doesn't stop it from happening. It just makes it more destructive when it does. That's the central point. While signs pile up, structural unemployment, precarious work, social polarization, leaders continue to deny the obvious. And then comes the inevitable question. How long can this charade last? Wolff's warning is clear. Not much longer. And as we'll see next, wage stagnation is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that collapse is already underway. The warning from Richard Wolff is a wake-up call. Either we face the truth and take urgent action, or we watch, helpless, as everything falls apart. In summary, what he reveals is not just an economic theory, but a cry for awareness. The financial crisis we are experiencing is not an isolated storm. It's the result of decades of accumulation, mistakes, and a deep structural imbalance. Ignoring this is no longer an option. The signs are clear. The damage is already underway, and the collapse is no longer a remote possibility. It's a ticking clock. So, what should we do? According to Richard Wolff, the first step is to break free from denial, to recognize that this system has reached its limit. Then, collectively, we must seek alternatives. New models that prioritize people over profits, that restore dignity to work, and that make the economy serve society again, not the other way around. It's a huge challenge, no doubt, but it's also an opportunity, a chance to rethink, rebuild, and transform. And the sooner we begin, the greater the chance we have of avoiding an even more painful collapse.